Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. In this video, we're going to continue with part 2 of our upside down drawing. And if you want to follow along with traditional materials, you can check out part 1 in this series where I show a list of the charcoal tools that you can use to do this painting. Now, the app that I'm using is Infinite Painter for Android, and it will have all the charcoal brushes and the graphite paintings and all the things in its brushes there. And so here we're working on the second part, and we're just continuing onward with doing some more shadowing on the chin and just continue to refine the shapes. And if you're following along traditionally, you can use an eraser to bring out the highlights that are in your charcoal or your graphite. Or you can even use white charcoal pencil, but I typically use the charcoal pencil for the final highlights. So I like to use the eraser better for just making highlights. And you have to make sure that you're using a pretty strong paper if you're doing this traditionally. I like to use Arches cover paper because it holds up well to erasing, and it's thick, and it's kind of like Arches watercolor paper, but it's a little bit smoother on the surface, and so I use it a lot for charcoals and pastels and things. And so here I'm just sort of working on trying to get the hair in now, and drawing kind of individual strands, but you're going to have to also add a lot of darker shapes there to get the hair to make it pretty dark. And also I need to work on the hat. I'm just working on the hat, trying to get the brim in the back a little more rounded, and of course the hat's going to be darker because it's black, I assume, in the photo there. So we want to go ahead and just kind of work on the shape of it and work on the shape and the mass of the hair, and also work a little bit on the feathers and the pearls or fake berries or whatever it is that is in the hat. And so I'm just continuing to smudge and go back and forth here. I'm working smudging the brim in the direction that it is. So my strokes are sort of rounded because they're being a rounded shape to follow along with the hat. And so here I'm just trying to kind of get the brim in the front and get it shaped correctly. And I'm just using the smudge tool in Infinite Painter. And if you're following along traditionally, you can use the blending stomps or a paper towel or your finger. But I like to use the blending stomps the best because they tend to smudge out things and smooth them out, but not erase all of the graphite or the charcoal that you have on your paper. And here I'm just seeing the hair out and trying to get it to look sort of like one shape there, and just kind of get a sort of an abstract look with it. And so I'm using the charcoal pencil type to get the shape of the hat. I'm working on the crown of it. And then I kind of want to get some texture of the feathers. And you don't have to get all the minute details on the feathers and the beads and the berries that are on the hat. You just kind of want to to get sort of a suggestion of the texture on them. And I'm using some of the charcoal uh, sticks, I guess you would call them, that the charcoal brushes that are in Infinite Painter. And you can use your big broad charcoal stick if you want to, if you're following along traditionally, just to mass in the hair and to get sort of the light and dark looks of the hair. And so I'm doing that for the hair. Also for the her shirt, the off the shoulder blouse that she's wearing there, and also the strands of hair that come around her neck and go a little bit over the earring and poke out on the back of her hat from her hat there, and then also using that for the hat brim because we want it to be dark too. And the top of the hat, the crown of the hat also needs to be dark. So we want to go ahead and add that, and also some of the feathers are a little bit darker than the others. So I'm darkening in some of the spaces in the between the feathers and between the berries, and just kind of giving it the shape. We're refining the shape. And at this point, we're still doing refining work, but we're not at the final work. We're sort of in the intermediary stage, I guess, the middle part. And also I want to try to work on the background a little bit here, and I'm just going to add like the photo, just kind of some abstract shapes in the back and just kind of get some dark and light patterns here. And so I'm really smudging the charcoal look here, and I decided that that was a little bit too dark, so I've gone back and kind of dial that back and trying to get just some smudges in the back, but not overpower the picture. But we do want to kind of give enough to give a contrast there. So I'm working on the contrast and just trying to get kind of a dark and light space in the background. And so since her hair is dark and the hat is dark, you kind of want the background to be lighter on that side. And then since her face is light and the front of her hat and her shoulder, you want that part in the background to be kind of dark. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm also working a little bit on the shoulder. There's shadows on her shoulder, and you want to show that because it gives it a kind of a rounded form there. So you want to go ahead and let that show up too. And here I'm just kind of smoothing things out and softening things up and sort of leaving light and dark pockets in the hair, because that's how you show the strands of hair. And you can show a little bit of individual strands of hair at the end, but right now we're kind of just working with dark and light masses in the hair. And here I'm just kind of looking for something to smooth the background out again, and just kind of, I'm using the eraser tool set on airbrush to kind of make it soften the background. And if you want to do this traditionally, you would use a soft cloth or a paper towel or a Kleenex or something that, and if you use a Kleenex, make sure that it doesn't have any lotion or grease in it. You just want a plain old Kleenex, plain old paper towel. And you can also just use a torn up old t-shirt for your cloth. That's what I do a lot of times. And so I'm just kind of smoothing out the background, and then here I'm adding a few individual strands of hair on the edge of her hair. And that's where you're going to show the most individual strands of hair, is on the edges there, where you can see them, where they're kind of caught on her face, or sticking out from the hat. And so that's where the individual strands of hair will show up mostly. And you can use your charcoal pencil is what I would use mostly. If you're doing graphite, then you use one of your thin graphite pencils. And you can't really mix graphite and charcoal together very well because graphite is slick and greasy, and if you try to color over it with charcoal, the charcoal won't come off on it good. So if you do use graphite, use it in one spot and don't try to layer it with charcoal. Just use them side by side. And so here I'm just working a little bit more on the strands of hair and also her clothes, trying to get the look of that off the shoulder shirt that she's wearing. And you just kind of want to start refining in all the different places in the painting. You just kind of work from spot to spot, and you kind of want to bring your painting along in stages. Instead of making one spot finished, you want to keep it all the same stage. So you want your painting to be kind of in the intermediate stage right now. You're not finished. You don't have the final details on anything, but we're just kind of working in the intermediate stage. And again, I'm working on the brim of the hat, trying to get it more rounded, but I'm using a finer brush this time with more detail and not not using a charcoal stick. I want to use a charcoal pencil or a smaller brush in Infinite Painter, and we're just trying to kind of get a more detailed and finer look to the hat. And so I'm just kind of working on it. Also trying to get the spot on the brim where the light hits it just a little bit. And here I'm going through the Infinite Painter brushes, and you can use all these cloth blender and things like that to kind of give you more texture if you want to get it to look more like a charcoal texture or a graphite texture. And Infinite Painter has lots of texture. It's really good for doing that. And so here I'm trying to darken the brim of the hat, but leave a little bit of a light color on the edge, also darkening the crown of the hat. Again, I'm still refining it, trying to get the right shape, and just trying to get it a little bit darker. Also, I'm working on the shape of the hair. As you can see, there's little individual strands sticking out under the hat, so I want to try to show that, and I'm trying to show the strands that come across on her face and over the earring, but I want to leave some light and dark pockets in her hair and some darker strands and some lighter strands to show the highlights on her hair. And you can use your pencil, and you can use an eraser, like an eraser pencil, a typewriter pencil is what they used to be called, typewriter eraser. And you could sharpen them, and way back when I was going to school, you could use those to erase stuff on your typewriter, but I never did have that actually. I just always use this for highlights and charcoals. And one end is an eraser and one end is a brush. And also you can use electric erasers too, the battery operated erasers, and they work pretty well too. And they keep your hands from hurting, so I like to use those as well. And so anyway, I'm just kind of working on the edges of the hair, trying to get the little strands, still working on her chin, trying to get the look of the chin. But again, as much as you're tempted to flip it around, don't do it. Just keep it upside down. We want everything to just be abstract shapes. And so here I'm working on the background a little bit to bring in her chin. There's a little bit of a dip there, and so you just want to keep on refining and just trying to get uh, all the details, and just keep looking at them as though they're abstract shapes, though. We want to just keep working at it and not get any ideas about how it should look. So here I'm working on the feathers a little bit more. And in part 3, we're going to go ahead and finish the final details. So thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below. And if you want to catch the final part, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And I will catch you later.